Hey, in this video, we will watch together and I'll give my thoughts on high-stake games. So this video has not been made by me. It's a video you can find on YouTube. And it's every pots played by Linus Love, which is one of the best cash game player at the moment. Probably, he's the best. Probably still the best this year. And these are very big games. You can see that it's $10,000 bind. And we'll watch it together and I'll give you my thoughts. In this video, we will not go too deep into theory and too deep into detail. The idea is to stick to a basic level so that beginners can understand basically what are they doing. So we're starting in the small blind with Jack 9 offsuit. And first of all, Linus decide to have a limping strategy, which is something I don't recommend to do when you're beginning in the small blind. You just want to open 3x, keep your game easy. So he's playing against another player that also named Linus Love. So I think, funny enough, I think this guy named himself after Linus Love because Linus Love is super famous. And this guy is playing with half a stack because one stack is $10,000. So it's important to notice that he has a short stack. He's raising. Jack 9 is gonna call. Linus make a top pair. He's checking obviously to the attacker, the raiser, who's gonna go for a half pot bet. And you can already choose to call or to raise. Your hand is definitely strong enough to raise when you are blind versus blind, because blind versus blind, you play a lot of hands. You play what we call wide ranges, which means that you play an array of hands very wide. You are playing very medium / weak hands like 10-9 offsuit, 10-8 offsuit, even maybe some 6-5 offsuit type of hands. So in this situation, a top pair is really good, and you want to raise with this hand to put pressure on two of the cards. For example, Queen 10. Queen 10 is betting here, and Linus is gonna choose to raise, which is, as we just said, completely fine. He put Queen 10 in a very annoying spot because he doesn't have that much to put in to make a call. He has to put something like 400, a bit like 500 to win almost 2,000. So his risk reward is really good here. It's about 25%. So the question is, do you win here 25% of the time with Queen 10? I guess I would personally fold, but I'm not even sure what would the solver do, what you meant to do in theory. But this player chose to do something unexpected for me, was to re-raise, to basically say, I don't believe you. And by re-raising here, we can make Linus fold some hands that beat us. We can make Linus fold some ace high and some king high hands, which is great because he has queen high. But this is definitely something I would not recommend doing. Just keep your game simple. When you face a raise, just maybe don't really bother bluffing like this. This is when I'm going to repeat, this is very, very high level poker. And at your tables and even at my tables, we don't need to play this aggressively and this good. The idea is that in this first hand, when you get raised on the flop and you're the raiser, you can give up bluffing. The idea is that the population, the general population, the players that you guys play against and that I play against at nl200, they don't raise enough here. So when your opponent don't raise enough on the flop, like what Linus did here, when your opponent doesn't raise enough, you can just fold with Queen 10 because you know that your opponent doesn't have enough bluff. He's mostly having a strong hand. If he has a strong hand, there's no point bluffing, right? So this hand, they ended up Linus deciding to put him all in. The idea is that the pre-flop raiser in the big blind is short stack. You only have 50 big blind. So if he has it, he has it. But Linus really wants to put pressure and make him fold a hand like King Jack, King Queen, Ace 10, Ace 8. This type of hand that still have around 24% chance to win. Linus is very happy to make them fold. If Linus is playing against an overpair, he will go all in anyway. He will have to call all the way. So this is actually pretty standard, even though it's kind of aggressive and we don't see this at lower stakes. Next hand, we have kings that is going to be opened, obviously, and ace-3. It's a hand that you can call and you can 3-bet. 3-bet is a raise. So ace-3 is going to raise, totally fine. And kings is obviously an incredibly strong hand, so kings will always re-raise. And once he re-raise, aces has a decision. Usually it's a pure fold. In your games, when you're facing a re-raise, it's called a 4-bet, by the way. He opened ace-3 3-bet, kings 4-bet. When you're facing a 4-bet, population don't bluff enough, so you can just fold. But here, I guess this guy, Daryl, believed that the pocket king guy has many bluff here. So if you think he has many bluff, you can put him to the test and put him all in. Plus, they're also playing 50 big blind, half a stack. Pocket king called the all-in. Pocket king had how many percent chance to win? Like 70. Do we see the odds? We don't see the odds. It's something like 70%. And he lost because, yeah, that's okay, that's poker. It happens. Next hand. Now he got aces. This guy got a lot of shit in this video. It's kind of funny. He opened small blind call, 6-5 suited. We have a very good hand that is really happy to see the flop. We could raise, but we could actually just call. So we end up calling. Obviously, small blind and big blind are defending. They're not the one raising pre-flop. They're not the one who attacks, so they always check. And here with aces, you could actually check. It's what we call a trap. I would avoid trapping at your stakes because trapping with a very strong hand like this is only good when your opponents are very aggressive and they're going to do a lot of bluff. But at your stakes, people don't bluff enough. So if they don't bluff enough, there's no point trapping. So I would never check here with aces if I were you, but in this game, you definitely want to check. 6-5 here. Now on the turn, we have we have the best possible bluff here. This is like we have a flush draw and a straight draw. So we probably have something like 30% chance to have a straight or a flush by the river. So we have a monster hand. So we're going to start bluffing with this hand. We don't have to bluff it every time, but I would just do it every time. And aces here, probably you could call, but I would like to see a raise. The idea is that now your hand is protection because any spade, any club, any 5, any 2, any 6 can suddenly turn your aces into a medium strength hand. So you need to protect your hand. So I would like to see a raise here. He just go for the call, which is probably fine. Once again, at these stakes, this guy played much better than me. So I'm not saying they're making mistakes. Just that I would always raise and make it simple. 6-5 got there. He made a straight. He go for a pot bet. And aces will.
Have you ever been?
We got a commercial. He pots with 6-5. He has a straight. And aces now, obviously, you might lose to 6-5, but that's all. You win to everything else. You lose to 5-2 suited as well. That's all. So you basically have the nuts, which means the best hand possible. If you lose with this hand, you lose with this hand. What can you do? You just cannot not go all in here. Your hand is way too strong. When you go all in here, you get called by pocket 4. You get called by pocket 3. You get called by pocket 7s. You get called by some 2 pairs like ace 4 of heart, ace 3 of heart, maybe ace jack offsuit. So you definitely have to go all in here, which he does. And it's funny, he doesn't put everything. I don't know why. He keep a bit of money behind. And obviously he is gonna put the rest of the money. This guy lost again. He's been really unlucky. 50 blinds again, short stack, line is open, ace king you have to raise. And ace queen you could call and you could re-raise. You can do both. Ace queen is pretty strong. So he re-raised and now ace king, it's a no-brainer. Ace king is amazing. You have to go in. You don't want to see the cards because when you see the cards with ace king, 60% of the time you don't hit. So if you call and then you see the flop, 60% of the time you don't hit and you're going to be in a very annoying spot. But if you go all in, you're always good. If you're against queens or jacks, you have 50% chance to win. If you're against aces and kings, you're pretty much dead, but that's all. So every other situation, you're doing great. So they go all in and he's going to lose. again, sometime shit happen at poker. We're gonna move forward because this hand is not really interesting. Let's not look at the heads up. Heads up is different. In heads up, Queen 5 of suit is good enough to open. In 6 max, you don't open these hands. It's really shitty. We're gonna go here. This is, let's see what kind of poker they're playing. Is it NT for? No, it's normal. Okay, right. So this is $40,000 buy-in. So 100 chip is $40,000. So this is pretty sick. Pocket 5, you can open, you can also fold it because you have 5 people behind you. So he's opening, he's gonna get probably 3-bet, although Ace-Jack could call, but Ace-Jack went for the 3-bet. And now pocket 5. It's worth to notice that it's one buy-in is $40,000, and they are playing with basically 2 buy-ins. Basically they have 200 big blind, so they're very deep. When you're very deep, you actually want to call with pocket 5 because if you make a set, you can win a gigantic pot. At my games, I would fold, but yeah. We get this beautiful pot flop. This guy has the absolute nuts. He cannot lose, basically. And let's see how they're gonna play from there. So we got a check, which is fine. You want to check your flushes sometime, especially when you're against very aggressive player like Linus, who's the best player in the world and also considered to be close to a maniac. He's really good at putting his stack in the middle, going all in very often, and putting you in horrible spots. So I guess this kind of players is definitely fine to check this hand. But when you're against people who are playing in low stakes, like below $1,000 buy-in or below $200 buy-in, people really don't bluff enough. So don't ever check this hand. Please don't make this mistake. I see people trapping like this way too much. It's only okay to do this as this stake. So he check, and Linus is already starting to bluff here. He has nothing, and he realized that here he needs to have some bluff to be balanced, to have some bluff when he's betting. Otherwise, if he never have bluff, his opponent can just always fold. So everybody know that Linus is someone capable of bluffing in any situation. So it makes playing against him really hard because you basically have to call with pretty weak hands sometimes. So he's betting, obviously Ace-Jack, you can call, you can also raise. And now that Ace-Jack called the flop, he's just gonna keep checking because now Linus is the one attacking. And Linus is probably gonna continue, knowing him. He went for the check. And this is a very tricky spot. I guess he can check again. So let's see what he does. No, he went for the bet, really big bet, almost pot. And I think he's just gonna go in, right? Yeah, he doesn't go in, but he raised, obviously. This, I would never see this at my games. At your games, even less. This is incredibly aggressive. And yeah, he got called and he lost. Pocket 8, great hand, we're gonna raise an S6. In the blind, you can call and you can raise. You can do both here. I would raise here when I'm playing low stakes because people play very bad when they get raised. So I would raise, but at these stakes you can just call. We have this flop. Pocket 8 here is a very medium hand, there's no point betting. And A6, you have an ace in your hand, so you also don't need to bluff. You would want to bluff some worse hands than this one. Now pocket 8, there's still no reason to bet. We are gonna win quite often just by going to the river, just by going to the showdown when we show the cards. So when we bet here, we prefer checking and let your opponent bet because we have an easy call here with pocket 8. And well, we river, not the best hand, but almost the best hand. Obviously we check and A6 sadly check back, A6 give up, and pocket 8 win. King 9 suited in the button, we're gonna open. Ace 8 offsuit, we defend. And we're gonna go a bit into theory, but 7, 8, 9 board is really good for big blind because when big blind defend, he has a lot of hands that connect with this board. Meanwhile, when button open, he's not gonna open a hand like ace, like 8-5 or 7-4 or 9-6. These hands are not open in the button, they're too weak, but they're defended in the big blind. So big blind has all of these hands, and the button, he has all of the ace king, ace jack, king queen, and all of these hands are kind of trash here. When you have king queen here, you basically have nothing. When you have king jack here, you don't have nothing, because any 10 make you win, but yeah. So this part is not the best, and so you need to be very careful when you're liners. Now you have a top pair with a king, so you can bet and you can check. This and can go either way. Basically, it doesn't mean, it's not going to change much if you bet or if you check. The idea is that this hand just want to bet one or twice maximum. You just want to make the pot a bit bigger, so you can make the pot a bit bigger now, or you can check and bet later. Both are okay. If you think that your opponent is very aggressive, you want to check to let him bluff. If you think that he's very passive, then there's no point checking to let him bluff, so you would just bet yourself on the flop. Ace 8 is going to bet a quarter pot. It's a bit of a funny bet. It's value. He's betting for value because he's going to get called by worse here. He's going to get called by some ace high. He's going to get called by some queen 10, some king 10. He's going to get called by some pocket pairs, some worse 8s, some 7s. So it's actually a decent hand to start to value, but you cannot bet big. Obviously, he's betting a quarter. And king 9, I guess you should raise, right? Obviously, you're raising. You have 3 9s. It's really important to protect your hand because you don't want to. The board is kind of connected and drawy, so you don't want your opponent to see a river for cheap. River comes, and I guess we obviously have a hand strong enough to keep betting. Checking here would be horrible. And now the question is, how much do you want to bet? There's 10,000 in the middle, and your opponent has 33. We're obviously never. I don't think we can go all in here. That would be way too big. I think here we would like to bet pot or 2/3, but I might be wrong. Linus will tell us what to do here. He's betting pot, and ace 8 obviously has an easy call. I don't think you want to bluff raise here, so you're just calling, and you see the bad news. He had a 9. That's life. Next hand, ace jack is opening. 4-5 can call, and 4-5 can raise. Usually it's more going to be a raise than a call. The idea is that you want to raise here and make him fold, and you win the hand. And if he doesn't win the hand, if you don't win the pot, you have a hand that has some playability. When you hit a 4 or a 5 on the board, you know that your opponent doesn't have many 4 and 5. So you're going to be able to hit some boards that your opponent might miss. But that's not really important. So he called. He didn't 3-bet, so he called. That's fine. And he has this board. Obviously, if he called, he defend. If he defend, he's never gonna bet. He's always gonna check. Ace jack here, we can bet. We can check. Just going for the bet 1/3, and Linus can raise or call. Basically, his hand is good enough to put all the money in by the river. But if he always raise when he has a flush on the flop, then when he call, he never have a flush, and then your opponent can exploit you because you're predictable. If you call and you never have a flush when you call, then your opponent can just put a lot of pressure. Now this is very advanced, and this is very useless to do this at small stakes because people don't watch what you're doing. So here you have a strong hand, you would always raise. Now at these stakes, they are playing very good. They're playing against each other every day. They know exactly what the other guy is doing. So he knows that he has to check his flush, or he has to call his flush some of the time on the flop and not always raise. Because once again, if he always raises when he has a flush, then when he call, he never have a flush, and then he's predictable. Queen is going to slow down the action. Ace jack has probably not many reasons to bet here, I suppose. He could bet, but I think it's going to thin, and I think checking would be better, so he checked. And now Linus has a decision. It's a very tricky spot because any king makes a straight, which is fine. He's beating a straight, but I'm not sure which sizing to use here. River spots are a bit tricky to use. Could he bet big or just no? He's going for 1/3, and I guess ace jack. You have no reason to bluff raise here. Your hand is good enough to call because if your opponent is bluffing, you're already winning against a bluff, so you don't need to raise. Let's say he had a hand like I'm not sure. I'm not sure which hand you're gonna bluff here when you him. Maybe pocket 7 with a spade. You would bluff. I don't know. So he call and Linus win a little pot. So something important to notice is that until now you've seen that nobody played any stupid hand, any shitty hand like ace 4 offsuit or queen 8 offsuit, or this is probably the worst hand we've seen until now, queen 8 suited, and he's only opening it because this is in the button. You can open it in the cutoff as well, but you will never open this hand in early position. This hand is really weak. So Linus is opening. He get raised. Ace 5 is definitely good enough to raise, and queen 8 is not good enough to call. In theory, you could 4-bet this hand, meaning bluff re-raise this one, or fold. And if this hand is here, it's definitely because he played it, so he's gonna. Okay, he decided to call, which is surprising, because if we check at the seam, alright, so button is opening all of these hands. You can see that button doesn't open queen 8 offsuit, button doesn't open s2 offsuit, he doesn't open 4-3 suited. When he's opening, small blind is gonna raise with all of these hands. He's gonna raise with a hand as weak as ace 3 suited, as weak as pocket 6, as weak as 10-8. So button open 2.5, small blind is gonna raise to 12. The solver like to do very big raise, especially when you don't have position, but this is a more complicated concept. And now button is never going to call or fold queen 8. So the reason why he's never going to call or raise queen 8, I was wrong, it's queen 9 who's raised or fold. So queen 8 is always folded, and so the reason why he called is probably because this guy is barely, maybe not a professional. I'm not sure what is the reason why he called this one, but yeah, it's definitely not a play in theory, and so if he did it, it's for some exploitable reasons. He probably know that his opponent has too many bluff, maybe he's too aggressive, or maybe he think he can win later. So we have this board, ace 5 is already meant to go between check and half pot, or to third, even for the check. Queen 8 could bet or check, he checked. Queen 8 here is definitely not incredibly strong. You have to take in consideration what happened before. What happened before is that you open and the opponent raised, so he 3-bet. When he 3-bet, he say he has very strong hands, like we just saw. He's saying he has a lot of very good broadways, like Jack 10 suited, which is good enough to raise, King 10 suited, and some good pocket pairs like pocket 7 and plus. So against all of these hands, queen 8 is okay, but it's not incredibly strong, and in theory you want to check some queens too, and he's going to choose to check this time. On the turn, ace 5, yeah, you have a pocket 5, so you might think I can just check, my hand is medium, but you also have 4 spades, so this hand starts to be very good enough to bluff, I believe, or even to value, because when he's betting small here, he's basically, Linus has to call with a hand like king 10, because he has a draw. He has to call with a hand like ace 10 or 10-9, or maybe even king 9. So Linus has to call with worse hands here. I don't think you can raise here. You have top pair with an 8. It's not good enough. And the river is kind of fun. Let's see if he's going to choose to bluff this one. In theory, I think he shouldn't. I think he shouldn't, but let's see what he does. He chose to go for it and to go for a half-pot bluff. I think this guy's, I'm not sure. Anyway, and so now queen 8, you have 2 pair. So, okay, you lose to a flush, you lose to 10-9, you lose to pocket jack, and queen jack. But I think you have to raise here. Your hand is kind of strong. I would be surprised if it's not an all-in. So as you can see, this is time. The speed is time 2, and they're taking the whole time to think. So I see people playing low stake. They just play too fast. There's no rush. Take your time to think about what hands your opponent has. So he didn't raise. Okay, so I think I was a bit too aggressive here when I'm raising, and yeah, he's gonna All right, I hope these few hints were useful, and see you again.